Hi everybody, it's John Honig from the Scenic Factory. In today's video, what we're going to do is we're going to build a sagebrush tree. It's quite simple and it looks quite effective. So I've done this in a bunch of different dioramas and I've shown them. I just haven't really shown how to do them. There's a couple different videos out there. Some of them just spray globs of seafoam on and flock them and more the model railroad end, and they look like a puffy tree. We're going to do it kind of in the same line, but we're going to do it with a little bit more detail. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the sagebrush armature. This is about 6 inches or so. Once we put our seafoam base on it, it'll probably add another inch to the top. This one in particular is for a diorama I'm building for Michigan Toy Soldier for a display. So you'll also see this in the end on a diorama. So basically, here's our setup. We have what we're going to use for the body. This is actually how it starts. Is dyed green seafoam. This comes regular tan. I dye it. It's available this way too through me. What we do is this is basically how it comes. I don't use it as a big glob like this. I snip off all the individual pieces. That way we can kind of build the tree and shape it as we go. I take them down to pieces about this size. This is about a general size. And what I also do is I keep a little pile of larger pieces that are unsnipped, basically the tops of these. And what we do with those is if we wind up, like if you look at the end of this tree, it's got a couple narrow spots. So if we want to build body out as we're building this, we'll take some of these larger pieces if we want, and like say in a spot like over here, when we start to glue these on, we'll add a bigger piece in order to add a little bit more body. It's all done with spray adhesive. Again, I like the Elmer's. This is just Walmart craft store spray adhesive. Again, the reason I like it is because I can spray it super light and it's very misty. Some of the other ones are a little bit too heavy. Even if you spray them misty, it turns everything white. You do this nice and light, and it seems to work fine. It doesn't discolor the trunk. What I will do is in a big spot, like right here, I'll put a little piece of tape. I'll stick it on my shirt so it's not so sticky. Because we will be spraying on this. This will actually be a two-part. This first part here will be getting our base on and our mass, and the second part will be the flocking and finishing up. Not a super big deal with these. This is quite easy to do, especially if you do a couple. One thing it's coming out soon just to make life easier, is I'm actually going to offer these as a kit. We sell the sagebrush armatures now. We sell everything else that goes with it, just to make life easy. I'm basically going to do these as a 2-tree kit. The flocking of choice will be an option as far as color, but it'll come with a big bag of the dyed green seafoam already. You can use the the tan seafoam, but then once it's all on, you're going to have to spray paint this, and then you ruin the nice armature. So I like to use the dyed green, and so there's minimal, and it keeps this armature looking nice. So tell you what, let's get started. This particular glue is a ball, and that's old. Give it a little quick shake. Now we're not going to spray the whole tree. We're going to work in sections and just keep building out. It's a good idea to have an idea of what you want this tree to look like, because the good part about doing it with pieces and almost like the groundwork I do, layering it, you can create whatever shape you want. If this was narrower, we could build it up nice and narrow. This is going to be a little bit fatter. So we're going to work with kind of the shape of what this armature is. But even at that, it's looking a little bit big, because once we glue our seafoam on, it's going to grow in size. And I don't want a giant basketball looking thing. So I'm going to snip some of these outer branches off. Keep it uniform. This side is a little bit large. We're going to be building this out anyway once we add our seafoam material. Oops. So we're going to snip some of these off. We want a pretty uniform shape. This particular armature has some of the moss on it. Half of our armatures do, half don't. You're not going to see it, so I'm not even going to bother picking this off. But these make great dead trees and if we leave the moss the way it is. Snip a couple more of these here. So in the end, this will be probably a good 7-inch tree. I've already drilled a hole in the bottom and stuck a nail in for a mounting pin. Always save all your little pieces here, they come in handy. Now since this trunk is so short and I'm leaving this bottom branch on, it's kind of difficult to hold, so I'm going to use a pair of vice grips on the pin. Otherwise you can just drill a hole in a piece of 2x4 and you can set these in, and that's what I also use for making these. So what we'll do is, a pair of vice grips is nice and heavy too, so it's not going anywhere. Give me something to hold on to. You can wear gloves if you want, kind of gets in the way. We're just going to use tweezers as we go. And once we spray some of the adhesive on, we're going to do a couple of main pieces first, and then we'll work into sections and work our way around. And again, this is not difficult by any means. Do protect your work site a little bit because it is misty and it does wind up going everywhere. Now this is the only time I'll spray it heavy, and I'm not spraying the whole thing heavy, I'm just spraying a couple spots where we're going to put some of the bigger pieces on. Basically the caps. See? Oops. Actually, I don't even need tweezers yet until I start to get a couple pieces in here. But I stick it so the crown is up. I mean, there's a definite crown side to these. Once it starts to set up, we'll get a couple in there, and it sticks to itself much easier than it sticks to the armature. So these first ones are just to get us our starting points. Again, these are not that big. Some are smaller than others. When I'm beginning the starting points, I do like the bigger pieces like this that'll basically from here up, you're not going to see a lot of this bark once this is flocked, but what you can do afterwards, go in, which I'll show you in part 2, is I go in with a long brush, stiff brush, and we can scrape off anything that gets on these. Now this is kind of out in its own, this piece here. This is where I'll go in and I'll grab one of the bigger pieces. This is like a big crown, not big crown, but this is a big piece that we're going to use to fill our void here. Same here, but not as big. We just want enough of it to touch, so when this starts to set up, which is relatively quick, it holds on. This will basically hold itself together as we keep putting pieces on. Now, I'm going to build some in the center here. Although I don't want a big fat crown, you know, we do want to fill it. So I'm going to use another big piece here. You don't really need to worry too much on what way some of the branches are going inside here, because like I said, we're going to be building off of this. Cut this side a little. It's just repetition. What I'll do is I'll get a couple more on here, and then basically we let it sit. I'll haze a tiny bit of this on top. We'll let it sit till that hardens up. Then I'll come back and I'll start adding a bunch of other pieces in. That we can kind of do off camera. You're going to get the idea of what we're doing here right now. And then in part 2 we'll detail it up some more. Over here we're going to use another somewhat big piece. And look at it every now and then from the top or however, just to make sure you're getting somewhat of a shape going. Again, most trees are see-through also, so you don't need to cram this. Like I said, some of the other videos just pack this stuff on everywhere. We don't really want that. At least not in this scale. You can probably hear the glue. See, it does not take much at all. Little squirts. I'll leave that one out there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'll keep adding and keep building this up. And then once it's built up, I'll just put a little bit of haze over the top of it. Just kind of it gives it a little, you know, gets a little glue on everything and shells it again super, super light. That way it doesn't turn anything white. And then we'll come back in and that's where we'll pick up part 2. We'll finish detailing this up a tiny bit and then we'll come in and we'll start the flocking. So, that'll be part 2.